Here's how to know when to push in training versus when to back off. The times when it's okay to push during a session is in scenarios where you've had a ton of consistency, where you haven't had any flare-ups or injuries, I would say in the past 3 months, or when mileage has been consistent and you haven't run into any issues of burnout or anything like that in the recent weeks of training. It's also okay to push during a workout, specifically when the elements are really hard. So if it's windy, if it's super cold, if you're just having like an off day like that, those are scenarios in which I find it okay to push during a workout, knowing that on the back end, you're gonna double down on your recovery. When it's time to back off is a whole nother scenario where it's super important to avoid burnout, avoid too much fatigue, to avoid injuries. It's super important to be able to decipher when you need to back off in a workout. And typically that's comes when you've been facing a lot of inconsistency in your training. For example, being injured in the past couple of months or having flare-ups pop up every now and then. That's when you know it's not worth pushing in a workout, if you know that something is kind of iffy and might flare up even more if you push through or try to run too hard in a workout. Another scenario is if you're not sleeping well. Typically overtraining directly translates to really poor sleep. So if you feel like you're inconsistent with your sleep beyond your control, you know, if you're dealing with signs of insomnia, which is something I've dealt with in the past, or you're just having a really tough time finding that consistency of a normal sleep schedule, that's when you know you should probably back off a little bit, especially in those harder workouts, or at least give yourself a couple of weeks to kind of regain that momentum and reset a little bit. Also, when your energy is really low in general, it's not worth pushing. Some days, I mean, you're just gonna run into a little bit of excess fatigue or just really low energy. And I would say in those times, it's important to just focus on your effort. You know, running, let's say 5:30 pace for your threshold one day may be the same exact effort as your normal 5:20 or 5:25 threshold. Just knowing that you're doing what's best for you on that day is going to keep you consistent in the long term, and it's going to keep you healthier and better off versus trying to force the pace and then running into even more problems because you couldn't let your ego go.